Okay, once again, hello everyone, and welcome to this Google Cloud Platform Fundamental session. It is organized by the BIT Pro community and powered by Techaholic. You can follow us on our Facebook page, LinkedIn, and for Techaholic, LinkedIn handle is I am Techaholic, and same thing applies to Twitter as well. You can visit our website. You see for more information. And let me go next and introduce myself. So my name is Ajay Kakar. I'm enterprise architect working mostly in the IT infrastructure side. I am Microsoft MVP 6 times in a row for Microsoft Azure nowadays. You can follow me on LinkedIn. This is my LinkedIn ID. And if you want, you can follow me on Twitter as well. Okay. Let me go to the next slide and begin this conversation. So before I begin, right, I would like to know something from you guys. How many of you are aware of about GCP technologies? How does it work? Basically, how many of you are experienced into the GCP or have any knowledge about the GCP? You can use this area and you can raise your hand so that I'll know that you have some idea and the knowledge about GCP. In this session, we are going to be mostly cover the fundamental and the basics of it. So can you please raise your hand if you have any? Uh, I'm new to GCP. Okay, cool. Say okay, good. Okay, cool. Okay, cool. I think that's good. So let me not waste more time and begin this session, right? So why I was asking this because we are, as I said, right, we are going to begin this session and begin this journey. So I'm going to cover the GCP fundamentals, and it is going to be mix of the basic overview, the core concept, how the GCP has been designed, the structure has been designed, how the access can be given, and then you will see the basically core offerings from the GCP. Either you talk about the virtual machine, different types of machines which are available, networking components, storage, container application, and then how do you deploy, monitor everything, and at the end you will see the elastic services like the big data and the machine learning, Hadoop, etc., etc. So in this session, basically looking at the time is only 1 hour. I'm going to more focus on the overview and the core concepts. If you will see the GCP and if you look at the infrastructure, what kind of infrastructure component it is providing. So GCP, again, Google has the footprint in IaaS, PaaS, and the SaaS world. SaaS is completely separate, which we are not covering here. SaaS is more around Google Workspace, like the M365. We will talk about the Microsoft. In the infrastructure side, where you can use the Google Cloud Platform to build and deploy your applications, you will see it is spread across managed infrastructure and the dynamic infrastructure. It starts from the IaaS, which is your compute engine, right? Where, for example, the virtual machines, where you can design your virtual machine, you can deploy your applications, you can connect with the databases, you can run it, right? Then you will see the PaaS services, which is known as App Engine in GCP world. You will see the hybrid, which is Kubernetes engine, or you can say the container engine in the GCP world, and then cloud functions, which is, yep, any questions? Okay, so there is a cloud functions where you will see you can deploy your application. You do not need to worry about any compute or anything, right? And then you will see the managed services, which is more the elastic resources. Either you talk about the Bigtable, BigQuery, machine learning, right? So those kind of things will be there in the dynamic infrastructure side. So it is again spread end to end. And then you will, after that elastic resources, you will get the SaaS services, which is the Google Workspace part. So Google has presence at this moment in 27 regions. you can see, you can watch this link and you can get more information. As soon as they will increase the numbers, it will be published there. So they have presence in 27 regions. Right now they have 82 zones. Most of the zones has 3 data centers, right? And there are 146 network edge locations, and it's available in the 200 countries. And you can see where it is coming soon. So I think in the Doha and a few other locations, it's coming soon. They are going to open more and more regions and zones. So the concept is almost same if you are coming from the Azure world or the AWS world, right? So you will have regions, and then you will have data center location. You will have multiple data centers so that the data can be, sync between the data centers. If one data center goes down, another data center can provide the services. So it has built on the same concept. If I'll talk about the regions, so these are the regions you can see on the map, and the blue ones are the existing regions, and the white one you will see the bubble here, like this here. This is upcoming regions. So you can see, I think they have existence almost in each and every location, in each and every country. As I said, most of the regions has 3 zones, right? But you will find somewhere there they have 4 zones as well. Some regions, yeah. They have edge point of presence, right? Almost in each and every location. So let me little bit talk about the what does it really mean, edge point of presence. So edge point of presence generally means where is the edge network for the Google, where customers can connect. So these are the locations. So Google has their own global network, the backbone, which is connected across all the regions and all the data centers. Now if customer wants to connect to their data to their service directly, so there are 2 options. Either you can use the dedicated cloud interconnect, which is separate, like the if we'll talk about the in Azure world is called Azure Express Route. So you can connect using either dedicated cloud interconnect, or you can do the peering using the edge locations. So these are the edge locations what Google provides, where you can do the peering. And so whenever you are sending any data, you will just connect to the edge network, and then it will use the Google backbone to sync and send that data across the multiple regions and the data center based on your design. And these edge point of presence are also used by CDNs. So you can see, so you will see this difference. I'm just going back once again. So you can just see this. So you will see this, these are the locations where CDN point of presence is. And it is almost similar. I think there will be more CDNs presence more than the edge locations. Yeah? So these are the CDN where Google can provide the CDN service where they generally cache some data. And Google has not built these infrastructure, I would say, just for the GCP. They have their offerings already in place. Either you talk about the Google search, YouTube, or anything else, right? They are using these backbone and the network infrastructure already. So these systems already exist. They are keep improving. And the CDN has the same concept. Either you will find in any other cloud platform, where based on the request, based on the data, either you can have a static CDN or you can have a dynamic CDN. Based on the content, based on the configuration, it will cache the data so that it can serve users very, very fast, right? It does not really go to the endpoint where the system or the data has been deployed. It will have some cache where it can serve the users. So this is all about the global network, what they have. And this is just, I'm just showing you the list of offerings, service offerings, what they provide. In the compute, you can see the compute engine, all types of engine, either starting from compute, containers, cloud functions. In the identity side, you will see the cloud IAM. They have their own IAM service, and cloud resource manager. So this is the complete, I would say, very high level summary of the service offering. So whenever I will cover the cloud IAM piece in one of the sessions, you will see the deep dive into the Cloud IAM. And Cloud IAM is really big, like I would say, like the Azure AD. It comes with the different role. I will cover a small, a small part of IAM today, and later we will cover in the IAM sessions. And in the networking, you can find the same concept almost, where you will talk about, I have my VPC, or this is my cloud virtual network. So they call it cloud virtual network, load balancing. They provide the CDNs, the cloud interconnect, which I was talking about just before, in the previous slide, which is known as cloud interconnect, direct cloud interconnect. And they also have various ISPs who provides this service on behalf of Google. Then you have cloud DNS. Then you have the elastic services like the big data services. You have various types of storage, and then you have machine learnings. So if I'll go next, you will find these are the management tools. So let me take a moment and talk about the Stackdriver. So Stackdriver is I would say is kind of end-to-end tool which can provide you capability to monitor each and everything end-to-end. So Stackdriver can monitor your entire cloud ecosystem which you are running in GCP. And then then finally you have tools for the developers, right? And deployment manager. Deployment manager is, if I will try to connect with the Microsoft Azure, it's like the all kind of ARM, right? Azure resource manager, where you can define either into the YAML file or JSON file, right? And you can run, and it will deploy everything for you. So these are the, I would say, the end-to-end services offering. Each service, once you will deep dive into it, you will find is very, very large. And I think each service itself can take an hour or two to if you want to talk end-to-end. Okay, so this is very basic understanding of the GCP infrastructure, what it offers. And now, because before we jump into the details of any service offering, we should understand what is the core concept, how the structure has been defined, and how the things can be designed in GCP, and what you should remember while designing these solutions. So let me go to the first service. So before I jump, any questions till now? And Prasoon and Chen, if you can help me with any questions, if anyone has. Please feel free to ask your question, put your question in the chat window. If anything will be immediate, I can answer it. Otherwise, I will cover at the end of the session in the Q&A.
Yeah, thanks, Ajay. For now, we don't have any questions posted. So if I get anything, I'll just talk you there, and then we can discuss everything. Hope that you have got some demo session for us where we can start GCP as with a free trial and other things, right? That's something.
Yes, we can. Yes, definitely we can do that, right? So I think the only thing is I will subscribe for one of the GCP, right? And it asks for the card information, other things, and then we can begin from there.
Oh, okay, good. So
I will show you from the scratch.
Excellent, super. Then I'll wait for that. And one question popped from Prakash Jha. He's looking out for what is unique about GCP as compared with AWS and Azure. I know that it's a big question, but still, if you can give some gist on it, it will be helpful for that.
Yeah. So I think let me take that question before I jump into the core concept. So very, very good question. So the only thing is, what you will find different from the GCP from any other cloud provider like the Microsoft Azure or AWS. So Microsoft Azure and AWS are more enterprise centric, and you will see lots of startups which are coming right now is using GCP. The only advantage what I see from the offering perspective, they are still evolving, and you will find some legacy where they have very basic services, but they are still evolving continuously. But if you will talk about the machine learning, the big data things, because Google is using their expertise, what they already have since few decades. So those kind of services, if you'll see the big data, the machine learning, the big table query, Hadoop, those kind of things are very, very scalable, very, very robust, fast, And if you'll talk about the global network, they have presence and they are using the infrastructure what they have already built to serve billions of customers. So for YouTube or any other Google offerings, right? You know how much search we are doing from the Google search engine every day. Everyone is doing that, right? So all those infrastructure they are using. So their backbone infrastructure is very, very strong, without any doubt. And the second thing is they have expertise in the machine learning. Either you talk about the NLP, you will talk about the translation, you will talk about the audio, those kind of services which Google already provides to the public. And the machine learning, those kind of things are very, very robust if you will compare with any cloud service provider outside Google. Rest of the core services where you want to run your enterprise infrastructure, I would say still evolving. And they are definitely, I think I would say in last 1 year they have done lots of changes, and it is coming more, but towards the like Azure and GCP, and they're 100% you know basically prepared to go to the market and compete with these kind of enterprise vendors. I hope that helps a bit. And once we will cover more in detail, I think you will see what is the major difference you will see in the future. Yeah. Okay, cool. So let me move to the next thing. So as I said, before we begin, we also need to understand what is the core concept and the structure we can use to define the GCP. In either you talk about the IaaS, PaaS, or any other service. So in GCP, there is something called trust boundaries, which you will find you can relate now. Once I will talk about it, you can relate with your if you have experience in Azure and AWS, you can just think it is almost similar. So in the trust boundaries, in the Google side, you have organization, which is called as node, right? So organization node is the topmost layer. From the organization node, you will see you have a concept called folders, and it provides the hierarchy to the entire resources within the GCP. So the resources you will see are sitting in the bottom, right? Each resources must need a project, and the projects can be directly connected to the organization node, or there could be a folders in between. So it is almost like the same structure. And if people are familiar with the Azure concept, I can just relate. So in the Azure, you have something called this is my domain, or this is my Azure tenant, right? Yeah. And then after that, you will have managed groups, and within the managed groups, you will have resource groups, and within the resource group, you will have resources, right? So the same, almost similar concept exists in the GCP as well. So here we call it folders. So folders are not necessary. So either if you want to structure your organization, either in terms of the departments or in terms of the platform services, you can define in any ways, and then you can have multiple projects. But projects are mandatory. So without projects, you cannot create any resources. Yeah. And the projects can directly connect it to the organization. I will talk about this later in the next slide. But this is the overall hierarchy of the Google Cloud Platform. And what does it provide? Basically, this level of hierarchy provides the boundaries and resource isolation. So for example, if my HR department resource should not talk to the IT department resource, you can do that because you define some of the policies and controls on the resource level, on the organization level. And it inherits from the top to bottom, which I'll talk about the access control as well. And then you have you can group your resources, as I said, into the folders, and all the GCP resources or services which you are running associated with the project, which you cannot avoid at all, right? So here you can track your resources, billing, you can manage the permissions, you can enable the specific API or services, whatever you want. So this is the trust boundary. And whenever you are designing, I think this should be taken care very carefully. Otherwise, what may happen that you may decide, you may design, you may start deploying something, and you may face some challenges in the future if you're working for the enterprise, that okay, the way we have designed the project, the way we have designed the folders is not meeting our requirements. Because if you have given the higher level access on the organization to anyone, by default, the person will get all the access on the resources. So we need to be very careful there. This is how you can organize the project. As I said, for example, if my company name, organization name is techaholic.com, and then I have designed folder 1 and folder 2, and as I said, the project name, as I said, I'm using A. I'm just trying to show you that it does not need to be unique, but it could be A, B, C, D, right? And it can fit into the folder. So for example, folder 1 has project A, folder 2 has 2 projects, and there could be a project which could be directly connected to the organization. So organization is the root node for the entire GCP landscape for the one company. So one company you can have only, for example, if your company is abc.com or abc.co.in, whatever it is, you cannot have more than one organization node. So it is like that. So one tenant, like in Azure or Office 365, you have one tenant, right? The same concept here is called organization node. And each project will have 3 identifying attributes. One is the project ID, which is going to be globally unique, and it will be defined by you, and it cannot be changed. The second thing is project name. It should not be unique, but it's better you keep the names unique, and it will be again defined by you, but you can change it later if you want. The project number, once you will define the project ID and the name, project number will be assigned. It is going to be globally unique, and it will be assigned by the GCP. So the project ID, you will see whenever you are doing the configuration or using the Google Cloud Shell, you will find some of the services or some of these components, project ID or project name will be used. So whenever you are deploying any resource, whenever you are doing any configuration, you need to call these things out, project IDs and the project names, etc. Yeah. So you should remember these things. So as I said, before I jump into the IAM side of the world, as I said, you need to define the hierarchy because the permission, the access level is inherent from the top to bottom and which cannot be changed. So now in the next slide, I'm just going to talk about IAM resource hierarchy. So as I said, you have organization. For example, you have organization example.com, and that some of the access has been given, and then you have a project, then you have a resources. Now you will notice one thing here when I'll talk about this example. For example, Bob at example.com has network admin access, which is compute.network admin.
Sorry to interrupt, Ajay. There is one question, other question from Prakash again. So he is looking out for answer.
Okay. Yeah.
So what is recommended to use project ID or number in the automation scripts, as project names may not be unique?
We'll use the project ID.
Good. Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks.
So generally, if you will use the labs also, you will see the project ID is given to you. So once you will subscribe for the lab, if you are going for the GCP course, right, you will get the project ID. The project ID is something which has been defined by you. You can remember, and you need to use in all the automation scripts and everywhere. Global unique, as I said, right? So if you have defined, if you have developed all the code, it will take care of everything end to end. Okay, so in the IAM resource hierarchy, as I said, the policy is coming from the top to bottom, right? So in the organization, for example, if Bob got the access to define the network, and in the GCP world, some of the things can be defined at the organization level, right? And some of the things can be defined at the each individual project level only. So network needs to be decided, because network is something which you will design for the organization, not for the one project. And then each project will connect to the same network and will try to communicate with other projects or other resources which have been deployed in your organization. So if Bob got the access on the network resources at the organization level, then the Bob can do all the changes for each and every project with regards to virtual network configuration, right? And if Bob is trying to do something in the project level, he can do, and if he's trying to do something at the organization level, he can do. Now, if Alice has been given access on the compute resources, which is more specific to the project, and the access has been given only on the project 2, not on the project 1. So now this person can do all the work on the project 2 and do all the things in the compute engine or the instances, whatever what are the things are running under the project 2. Now, but if you will see the last one, if Alice is trying to do some of the changes in the network, it will not allow, because Alice does not have access, even though he has full access on the project 2, right? But network is considered as a global entity, and the person cannot make the changes there. So this is one very simple example, but this is just telling you that, okay, whenever you are designing your entire organization and you are deciding the projects, because the project will be defined by the each team or project team who is running the things. So your structure should be well defined in advance so that you can control the access properly. If you will miss that, it will be a problem. So if I will talk about little more details, IAM policies are in hierarchy and is like top to bottom structure, right? The effective policy for a resource is the union of policy set at that resource and the policy inherited from its parents. So if you have given the access to Bob as well on a different places, so the top policies will take priority plus the policies which have been given on the project or the resource level. The policies can be defined at the organization level, folder level, project level, and resource level. So this is the hierarchy of the IAM resources. And these are so this is like too much of text, but I think this is very important. So as I said, GCP is still evolving. If you will talk about the GCP legacy, they had only basic roles: the owner, editor, and viewer. And you will find it very simple, because owner means you can do everything what the editor can do, but you can also manage the billing settings, you can manage the access, you can delete the project. And as an editor, if most of the people will get the editor role, they will get all the privileges, right? To look all the details of the resources and the structure of the GCP. Plus, they will also get the ability to create, modify, and delete resources. And in the viewer, it is like the only read-only kind of people who can read everything. But this is very basic role, and it is not recommended to use any one of the basic role unless, because as I said, Google is still evolving. Sometimes you will not find the predefined roles, and then you have no choice. Then you need to fall back on the basic roles. So predefined roles are the most preferred, where some of the roles, these are the roles, the list of the roles, and you will find some of the roles are in the beta, where you can define to your users or to the admins who can manage the services. And if you want to read more about each and every role, you can, I think, go to the this link and you can read more in detail. But these roles provide you control so that people can do specific activities, right? And in my previous slide, the two roles which I was talking about, the one role was the network admin, and another one was the instance admin, right? Now these are the few roles. So as I said, some of the roles you cannot define, you will not find in the predefined roles. That you can fall back on the basic roles. The basic roles are not recommended. Yeah.
Hey.
And yeah.
Hey Ajay, sorry to interrupt you. I see some guests are waiting in the lobby from more than 2-3 minutes.
It's taken care.
Allow them?
It's taken care.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks.
So yeah, and the final one, we have the roles which you can define or your admin can define, right? And these custom roles are user defined, and it allows you to bundle one or more supported permissions. So some of the permissions, so Google has very simple ways of defining the permissions. So for each activity, there is a permission defined, and you can club those permissions either from one or two more of these roles, and you can define your custom roles, which you can assign to the user. But there is a problem with the custom roles, as the custom roles are defined by you and you are using the cloud services. Google will keep changing their infrastructure and the hierarchy of the resources and different types of permissions within their landscape. So now it is going to be your responsibility that you proactively monitor and manage these custom roles. Okay, and so that you can make it evergreen and it cannot be misused. The last point, if you want to note something, when you create a custom roles, you must choose an organization or project to create in it. You can then grant the custom role on the organization or project level, right? So in the custom roles, you will not find that, okay, you can define the custom roles permissions on the folders level or anything like that. So these are the access controls what Google provides. And the last thing from the deck, and then I will try to jump onto the demo side of the world, right? The last thing is service accounts. So service accounts is the same concept what you will find anywhere else. Service account provides the control for the server to server authentication. For example, if you want to allow one service to talk to another service, if you want one server to talk to another server, you can define those kind of interaction. Service account again could be defined by you, or it could be Google managed service accounts. Service accounts authenticate using keys, right? And Google manages keys for compute engine and the app engines, right? And you can assign a predefined or custom IAM role. So basic roles cannot be defined in the service accounts because it gives too much of access to the resources or to the account. So service accounts can be defined by you, or you can use the predefined access controls on it, and you can define the IAM role, and then you can do the, you can manage the basically access on the compute resources or any other resources. With that, I think we are on time, and this was the last slide which I want to show you, and after that I want to jump onto the demo. Again, see the thing is, for the demo I need to use the card details, so I may stop the sharing for the time being, and then I can show you that I have logged into the system, and I can show you the GCP console. Will that work for everyone? Any questions before I do that?
That's good, Ajay. No questions in the chat. It's good.
Okay. See, the thing is, this is first session, and we are covering very basic things. And as soon as we will move on to into the details, for example, if we cover the virtual machine next session, then you can see the virtual machines deep dive kind of things, and then you can learn more about how the structure and everything in reality. Okay, so let me go back and disconnect my sharing for the time being, right, and then come back. Meanwhile, Chen, can you give any heads up about the conference and the rest of the work what we are doing, so that people can understand. And meanwhile, I'll be back in a second.
Sure, Ajay. Please take your time and start the demo. Get prepared for your demo. Hi everyone. Hope that you're all aware of the PowerShell DevOps and Cloud Conference, which we have planned in the month of September, and the date is scheduled on 16th and 17th. I hope that you have got the link. I'm going to share it quickly over the chat. We are expecting all the audience to share this with the broader audience in your network, at your workplace. So that helps us a lot to spread the word. We need your help. And we are also looking out for potential speakers who can present their ideas on the area of automation ecosystems, or they have some ideas in and around IT cutting edge services, which you can go through in our link in our website. And we have given some gist, what you have to pick up from there, what you can do for our community. So we are looking out your presence over there. So please enlighten us with your content, join us in the session, spread out words to others in the community.
Thank you, Jen. So let me reshare my screen and show you how does it work. Okay, I'm sharing my screen again. Hope you can see my screen.
Yes, Ajay, you can see your screen.
Okay, so it's pretty simple. You can, any one of you can go to the cloud.google.com, or you can search for the GCP. And once you will go there, you can see the console that gets started for free. And once you will click there, right? It will ask you to subscribe, or you can use your account. For example, if I want to use my account, right, I can just give my email address. You can create your new account for the demo, or if you want to learn something, you don't want to use their account, you can do that, right? And so then you need to, yeah.
Okay, so like Azure and other cloud providers, Google Cloud also provides 1 year free subscription with limited currencies, provided we give our credit card and other things. How this works?
Yeah, so the thing is, if you will see Google, right? So right now they do not provide the free subscription. So they provide the $300 credit for 90 days, which you can see here, right? Okay. And they say there is no auto charge after free trial ends. But let me show you what generally it asks. So it will ask my number. I'm not using my number, so I'm using some other number. I have some additional number for, okay. So it will send me the code, and then it will ask me about my details of the card, right? So I need to provide credit card information. And quickly, let me put this verification code here. Yeah. So here you will see, because I will pause here. I will not provide the card information at this moment, right? So here we need to provide the card details, and this is mandatory. Without that, we cannot go further. And you can skip, you can provide the business name, anything, and then you need to provide the card information. Then you can say start my free trial. Yeah. And then you will get the basically access to the console. Now I'm using the labs, so I have access to some of the labs, right? But the problem in the labs is that I cannot do the activities what I want. The labs are basically defined by the activities which I'm supposed to do for that lab. But I can show you the console and how the things looks like. So I will just jump into this thing, right? And let me just take my password copy from the lab and paste it here. Like the AWS, Google also use the quick labs things, right? Where people can go and do the practice. So this is how the console looks like. So now we are in the console. I have just skipped one step, not getting the free trial subscription for 90 days. I'm directly jumping into the the console, which I have access to from the labs, right? And this is how the Google Cloud Platform infrastructure looks like. So for example, if anyone of you or us needs to go to and create the VM instances, so here you can see the marketplace, the entire marketplace, the billing information, API services, IAM and admin controls, the compliance related stuff. Here you can get everything about the security, right? And then you have a subsection for each major service, which is compute and serverless, storage, database, application integrations, network. You can see VPC network services, and few other stuffs, right? And then you can see the monitoring, which I was talking about, CI/CD pipelines, tools, which you need to do big data. So these are the services what Google provides at this moment. And then there are some partner solutions like the Databricks and others, right? Which can also be used. Now, for example, if I need to go here and let me show you, if I need to create a new project, right? So here you can define, basically, you can define a project, you can define the folders. Okay, as I'm using this lab and the labs provide you predefined projects and the resources, so I will not be able to create it, but I can just show you how does it look like. So I can create the folder. Something like that. But then I need to define the location. As I said, this is a lab, so I do not have access. So I cannot define that. But generally, if you have access to the Google Cloud Platform, you can define the location and create the folder. And same thing applies to the project. And in the project, you can define the project name. For example, I say Ajay Pro. Today is 7th August, right? Sorry. Then I can select my billing account, and then I need to define the location. So as you will see, the project, this is the project ID, right? And it is telling me that, okay, this is going to be my project ID and it cannot be changed later. So I need to be careful that, okay, what I'm defining here right now, right? So this is about this. And if I go and let's see, try to create something from the virtual machine side, let me go and try to do something. Compute engine, oops, 1 second. Yeah, if I go and say, go to the VM instances. So right now I have nothing, right? And I can create a project, and then I go and deploy. I can go and deploy my, So let me see if I need to select anything. I can do something. For example, let me select this and say continue. Let's see if it works or not. So this is one thing you can go, and once you will have access, you can create your project. You can start defining the resources. You can create the new resources. So you can create the instance from here. The another important thing which I would like to show you, the Cloud Shell. So for all the work, whatever we are going to do in the GCP space, the one thing is you can use the GUI, but with GUI, with the help of GUI, you cannot do each and everything. But with the help of the Cloud Shell, which is very simple and straightforward. So you just click on the Cloud Shell. The Cloud Shell will launch. You will get it in the bottom. Yeah. So you can see I got my ID for the project ID here, right, which have been assigned to me from the lab. And here you can start running your commands and you can get it done. So let me show you how to create one instance from the console if it allows me. So let's say leave this with instance 1. The by default region is US Central 1. I think that's fine. We can leave that piece as well. Machine series is E2 general purpose. You can see different machine families, which we will discuss later in the section in the next event, right? And then I can select the machine type. So let's go with the default here as well. It's giving me one shared core and the 4 GB. And then here I can see I can select my boot disk and then identity and API access, right? So for example, I want to allow both HTTP and HTTPS traffic on this machine. I can select these things, for example, and say, okay, let's create. So it is creating the instance and you can see how quickly it will come up. And once the instance will be created, I think the one good thing in the right hand corner, right, you will get the details. So you can, if you need to set up the website name, host name, IP address, right, you can use these links and you can see how the things can be done, right? And you can just apply in your stuff, whatever the work you are doing in the GCP. It will give you the step-by-step details how you can do that. And what command, for example, if you're doing from the G Cloud, the G Shell Cloud, right? What you need to run, what command you need to run, etc. Right. So let me see if the machine is up and running. And let me close this tutorial. Yeah, this is the machine up and running. And if I need to do quickly SSH, I can just click here. And it's connecting. So this is very basic stuff I'm showing you. And if you guys have already worked on, I think this will be like a repeat of very basic stuff for you. But in general, this is how you can start with the GCP, right? And you can learn more about either taking a training, or if you want to learn from the community. I think we will keep doing the series of events in the GCP space. So this is the first session, and we'll continue with the more sessions in the future as well. And we will show you the demo. I will also try to see if I can get the passes from the Google for the audience, but no commitment, because in the Microsoft world we get it easily. But from the GCP side, I need to figure it out. How can I get that? With that, I think I'm almost done. Thank you for attending. If you have any questions, we can take. And otherwise, I can give you 2 minutes back. We are on time. Any questions from anyone? Please feel free to share your feedback as well. Anything you liked, anything you did not like, or anything where we can improve, what we should cover in the next sessions, so that we can cover that piece. The event of series what we are running is not in sequence. So last week Chen has presented about the automation, in the Microsoft side, and now we are doing the session about the GCP. So I think after 1 or 2 more weeks, you will see more session about the GCP or something else. So it will continue, but you can watch this space for more information. We are doing the session every week. Yeah.
Thanks, Ajay. And just for your information, we will be posting our upcoming events in our Bangalore IT Pro Facebook page, as well as in Techaholic website. Please keep a tab on it, and we will be posting some polls so you can upvote for the topics, and you can also go ahead and post if you're looking out for some new cutting edge technologies, or if you're interested to speak, please reach out to us. Feel free to reach out to us. We are here to onboard you and celebrate and get you some virtual stage to speak here and enable the networking with this.
Yeah, I think that's a very good point, Chen. Just wanted to share, right? If anyone is interested in speaking, and if you want to share, see, it's all about the community learning, right? So we are not providing any formal training, or no one is providing those kind of information right here. So if you also want to share with the audience, you can simply go to the techology.com, and in the events page you will see the call for speakers. So you can go and you can submit your session based on your timing, which can work for you, and you can select the date. So here you will get the details. You can select any date, any time. We run it 24/7, right? And we will host the event, and then you can deliver the session there. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Thank you.